morning, it's Rod Young here in New Zealand. We've just got an interesting study that's come up overseas from the European countries, and it's about modelling.
People that are best in the world at this thing. So what they're saying is, yes, we've got slowing death rates in Italy now. And we know the death rates in Italy have been tragic, and still are indeed, but the rate of increase is going down now. We believe in Italy. And they're saying this is the result of interventions implemented several weeks earlier. So this is what we've been saying, it's consistent. So first of all, when you have a lockdown measure like this huge non-pharmaceutical intervention of the European lockdown, first you're going to get reduction in the number of cases.
So we got a lockdown here in New Zealand, so that what this gentleman's talking about is what is looking at like happening in New Zealand. We've got an interesting situation where 90% of our cases are from overseas by aeroplane. 1% is the community transmission, which is the dangerous thing to have happen in the country. And currently, the planes that are arriving now from New Zealanders from overseas are being allowed to self-quarantine and go into the public. Now, these are individuals who are from countries where they've been away for a long time and their attitudes aren't as New Zealand's tall poppy syndrome, where everyone's quite compliant and follows the rules. And so we've got this pouring fuel on a fire in a sense of allowing people to come in who are just wandering. They're not based here, don't have friends here, and just wandering the country with the virus. So the reason that these individuals, and we know who they are because they fly into the country, aren't given 28 days in the 5-star hotel with room service and everything that they want to, maybe relatives if they have here that want to come and visit them and stuff like that and stay with them. So there's a whole lot of things that we could do, which I suppose are costly because you've got to hire out the whole hotel and pay for their room service and stuff. But from the rest of its perspective, I mean, New Zealand is going to get over this thing a lot quicker.
Then reduction in the number of hospital admissions, and then reduction in the number of deaths. Because the cases can have, on average, about a 6-day incubation period, but can be up to 14 days, so we expect a delay from that. Then people that get sick typically get sick in the second week of the illness, or up to the point where they need hospitalised very often, so there's another delay in that. But then again, deaths can often occur 2, 3, 4 or more weeks after the onset of symptoms, the first day of the illness. So there's another delay in that. So this is confirming that, and it's saying that we believe that these non-pharmacological interventions are now feeding through into reduced death rates.
So the reduced death rates, and that's what we're interested in New Zealand, 1 or 2% of the population, or 18% of the over 80-year-olds, and so the government's doing this because it can, and what cost it has to the economy and people's lives and stuff. But anyway, we are an egalitarian society and we're giving everything. A life is a life, a human soul is a human soul. And if you're a voter over 65 as a retired folk, your vote counts. And if you're under 18, you don't get to vote. And if you're not born yet, and abortions went up to 20,000 a year in New Zealand, 19,000 before that, and 18,000, 17,000. So if you're part of that category, you're not counted as well. So my personal belief is life begins at conception. Put the fences at the top of the hill rather than the ambulance at the bottom, and let's have some fun preventing unwanted conceptions. But if they are conceived, they're our brightest and best. So allow us to have that full 80 years of life.
Now Italy, the R naught, they think was close to 1 around the time of the lockdown. So when the lockdown started, they think the R naught. Actually, what they actually called this was the RT, to be precise. The reproductive index at a particular period of time, but it means much the same thing, really.
What the R naught is if you have less than 1, then a person that's infected with it infects less than 1, it'll die out. But with the virus that we've currently got, it's about an R3, and so one person gives it to 3 other people, and those people then give it to 3. So you imagine it goes 1, 3, 9, 27, 81. So it spreads really quickly over every 3 days. So
remember, we need the R naught to be less than 1 so we looked at this yesterday, take R naught to less than 1 for the crisis to be done. So if the R naught is less than 1, then each infected person is on average infecting less than one other person, and the number of infected people will go down. Therefore, the number of hospitalised patients will go down, therefore the number of deaths will go down as well. So they're estimating it was close to R naught at the time of the lockdown. So
now, Bruce Simpson on Aardvark this morning, he talked about the what's happened to capitalism, the buying and selling, it seemed, and he made the interesting point where a person at the checkout counter at the supermarket is just as important as a doctor or nurse at the hospital in this pandemic, and that toilet paper is as important as gold futures, and that we're locking up, bullion as well as we're locking up our toilet paper, and it's being rationed. It made an interesting point.
Was close to 1, so around 1 at that time. Interventions in 11 countries have averted 59,000 deaths up to the 31st of March, according to their modelling.
See, I did some modelling on the United States, and 4 million or 7 million deaths predicted at a 2% death rate. So they're looking at getting it down to maybe 250,000 to maybe 400,000. So that's an order of magnitude less than the predicted by the interventions of what they're currently doing, stay at home, pharmacological and stuff. But it's still a huge death rate in the next 3 months.
So what they're saying is here, well, we have an appalling death rate in Europe, and there's no question about that. But they're saying that with their models, if there hadn't been these non-pharmaceutical interventions, the lockdown, and to some extent the testing, although most of the benefit we're seeing now is as a result of the lockdown, not so much the testing, because many countries don't have enough testing. So without these measures, an extra 59,000 deaths would have occurred in these 11 European countries up until the 31st of March.
So it looks like 59,000 deaths. What have they got? 59,000 dead. So it's like half the death rate.
And then, of course, that would greatly accelerate.
But this acceleration that he talks about, and that's where, like America, they've got it down to 1 in 10 deaths as opposed to heading off to 7 million. So, I mean, if we do the 1 in 10 there, and you say 59, well, 10 times that, that's 500,000.
Because often you see the number of deaths doubling every few days, probably every 3 days without these interventions. So Imperial College London are firmly of the opinion, and their models are showing, that we've already prevented an awful lot of deaths in Europe. And to project that into the future, which they didn't do because they're very conservative scientists, but if we did project that into the future, that number would massively increase. And they do agree to that in principle. Many more deaths will be averted.
But there's another side of it. You can actually look at the full bottle of the world and say which of the groups that are at most risk, and which, if they passed and died, then that would limit the number of.
Now, between 7 and 43 million individuals have been infected up to the 28th of March. Now, this was a bit of a bombshell for me, really. What they're saying is, according to their modelling,
See, 43 million, and what have we got? 8,000 million people on the planet. So 43 out of 8,000, so that's 4 out of 800. So divide that, that's, 1 in 1,000.
These 11 European countries.
But then the denominator of the European countries is interesting as well, because that's a lot less, so then it's higher than 1 in 1,000.
Between 7 and 43 million individuals have been infected up to the 28th of March. Just let that sink in a bit. It makes the official numbers look farcical. The numbers identified by confirmed testing. And this actually equates to, and this is quite incredible, 1.88 and 11.43% of the population of these 11 European countries have already been infected.
So just to repeat that, 1 to 11% have been infected.
Amazing. So the models have a wide degree of variation. They can't pin it down accurately because these are mathematical projections.
See, that's what the Americans have done. They've worked out if they did release certain services to go back to work and what's the potential death rate. And so they're going to take the middle ground on this. Unwittingly, I suppose Europe is going to take the middle ground. You could lock down a country forever and then all of a sudden you'll have some unintended consequences. And so there's a middle ground to this. So they're just having a crack at it at the first time to give them some time for some treatments and to build up capacity. But at the end of the day, they've just got to let the handbrake go and roll down the hill.
But they're based on solid data points that they have, based on things like their knowledge of the transmissibility of the virus, the number of cases, the number of likely undetected cases. It's a pity it's not based on almost universal testing, then these numbers would be bang on, of course, if you could test everyone. But until we're waiting for the testing to be massively ramped up, this is what we've got. So I was quite taken aback, really. I mean, they're saying that it could well be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% of the population of these 11 European countries have already been infected. And this sounds alarming, but actually this could be really good news, because it could mean that a lot of these people have had very minor symptoms.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you get the antibody test done, then that 11% become the workers and are able to get out there and do amazing things in the community while the rest shelter in place. And the third category is those that get it and die. And so this is where the governments need to be proactive and get the antibody test and find who these individuals are, and then offer them debt-free freehold houses and land and stuff, because they are the future of getting the country moving forward.
And haven't been hospitalised or died. Now we know a frightening amount of people have been hospitalised and died and are very sick. But
yeah, so that's the that's the focus at the moment, the trauma of people going to hospital. But if you focus on those that have had it and survived it, and then make that your central thrust, and then bear in mind that there are going to be people that go to hospital, but see, if you've got a heart condition and you catch coronavirus, do you die of coronavirus or do you die of the heart condition? So then there's a whole debate about that. While we're interested in those that have caught it, survived it, and move on, we're learning our lesson from this, because there could be a far worse virus that comes through. And imagine if it took out the children rather than the old people, then we'd have to have a different approach then. But at this stage, people genetically were only designed to live to 35 years old. We can live to 50 happily from a reproductive perspective, and then everything's a bonus for the next sort of 25 years after that, 70.
There's huge more numbers that have been infected, then that will bring the percentage of those with complications way down. And I'll give you some examples of that in a minute. So it could be that this is the most encouraging paper I've read for some time, to be quite honest.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I'll just get this video up and running on the internet as soon as